Mr. Rey Hernandez. I'm very happy to see you again. You are very famous in Bulgaria. People know you because we already have 2 videos with you, or 3, I don't remember. We met in Miami, Florida, and it was a very nice time and to talk with you both of these times, and especially now.
Yes.
Congratulations for your radio show.
Thank you very much.
I wish you a great success and good talks with your guests. All of them will be scientists with more of one PhD. That will be very interesting for the public.
Yeah, what we're doing with the radio show is the radio station has maybe 30 different hosts, radio hosts.
Okay.
And the program is basically about the paranormal and on UFOs. But no one in those shows talks about consciousness.
Correct.
And so what we are doing in that show is the owner of the radio station invited me for the specific reasons to introduce the concept of the relationship between consciousness and all of the paranormal topics and UFO topics, because the owner is also a major experiencer. She's an experiencer of the contact modalities. She's had out-of-body experiences, remote viewing. She works for the police, identifying missing people, dead people, people that are captured. She's seen UFOs, she's seen dead people. So she's exactly what I'm talking about, that all of this phenomenon needs to be studied as one integrated phenomenon under consciousness. So she understood this. And so she said, Ray, I want you to be on the show to talk about the theory behind it. And what I'm going to be doing in our radio show is interviewing both academics, medical doctors, and researchers, as well as experiencers. And the people that we're going to be having on our show are people that are having, like her, not just one type of thing, but many different types of experiences. And as an examples, that all of this phenomenon is all interrelated. We shouldn't put them in little tiny boxes. Like the UFO people, they believe it's just UFOs, you know? They don't understand that after you see UFOs, you begin to have paranormal experiences, you know? You begin to go out of your body. You begin to see dead people, you know? So it's UFOs, just like near-death experiences, just like astral travel experiences. These are all triggers to your personal consciousness to wake up to all these other paranormal experiences.
Is that will be only one single show, or will be many more?
Every week, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also we will have the show that will be recorded so people can listen to it. And I will be putting up the shows on my organization's website. So maybe you can type it in later on when you translate this to your native language.
Yeah.
The website is agreaterreality.com.
Okay.
So the book that we're going to be publishing is titled A Greater Reality. So all you have to do is put a period and then come.
That will be the 3rd book, I think, or the 4th?
Well, this is going to be our 2nd book, but it's going to have 4 volumes.
Okay.
You know, our first book was just dedicated to UFOs because there was almost no statistical research study on the UFO contact experience.
Yeah.
There was the only book that was that came close to it was this book by Dr. Kenneth Ring. Okay. It's the Omega Project. Let me see. It's a near-death experiences, UFO encounters, and mind at large. And Kenneth Ring published this in 1996. and he is a retired professor of psychology at the University of Connecticut, and he was one of the major pioneer researchers of near-death experiences. And what had happened was that he had been researching by then for 96, 86, for almost 20 years, the phenomenon of near-death experiences.
Yeah.
And what he found was they matched very much the experiences of UFO contact experiencers in terms of how they changed, okay, after the experience, and the type of experiences that they had after the experience. Like I talked about the paranormal aspect, but also their psychological profile, their worldview, how they, for example, in that book, he compared 85 people that had UFO contact experiences, mainly abductees, with 85 people that had near-death experiences. And he gave them the same questions. It was almost 250 questions. And 70 of those questions were, how were you before? How are you after?
Yeah.
What is your view of the world? For example, before your experiences, were you not spiritual at all, slightly spiritual, neutral, or no spiritual at all, or slight, or different 5 degrees of categories?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the questions he asked was about spirituality, about money. How do you view money? Okay, like it's not important at all. Money, okay, it's slightly important. It's neutral. Oh, money is not important, or it's like not important at all. Like I don't care about it.
Yeah.
So what he asked numerous questions about their views of death, their views of loving each other, humanity. How do you treat people? It was like many questions, and so. What we did is we borrowed those questions. I talked to the professor, and I said, look, we're going to do this massive study, but it's not 85 people that have had UFO contact experiences. Eventually, it was 4,300 people.
Wow.
And guess what? Our data matched his data exactly. Okay? These people underwent a profound change for the positive, not the negative. And what he found that you would assume it would be the near-death experience, because once you die and you go up and you talk to God, like you're going to change, tremendously, for the positive, for the better. But what he found out was also the UFO abductee changed in the same exact way, and it's not logical, because people always thought of the UFO abduction phenomenon as something horrible, terrible, okay? But what he found was that over time, not in the very beginning, over time, it became a highly powerful spiritual awakening of the person. They didn't care about money. Money was not important anymore. They became much more loving. They became ecologically friendly to protect our planet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, but we have that data now from 4,300 people. Not just 85 people.
Probably this book is not anymore in the book market.
Well, it's on Amazon.
Really?
Amazon, yes, and it's used. They have used copies of the book.
Oh.
And it's rare. You have to check in once in a while. Sometimes they have used copies.
I'll look that.
Yeah, and this is like a must read, because this is one of the very few statistical studies beside our book, Beyond UFOs.
Yeah.
And then for your audience members, this is the real big show. This is 820 pages. Okay.
Yeah.
This was the world's first and only comprehensive statistical research study of people that have seen UFOs and have had contact with non-human intelligence. And there's 16 chapters in here. And most of the chapters are written by Ph.D.s, okay? And then the other part are written by researchers, people that have been studying UFOs for more than 40 years. As a matter of fact, the conclusion to that book was written by Brad Steiger. Brad Steiger wrote more than 175 books all on the paranormal and some on UFOs, because he also saw it as one phenomenon. He didn't see it as separate.
Right.
So, and he wrote that book in hospice right before he died.
Wow.
Okay,
That's amazing.
The conclusion to the book, and what he said was that this book here, Beyond UFO, is a historic book because no one has done it before. Okay.
Yeah.
And the data that we were able to get from our statistical research study backs up everything that he's been writing about the phenomenon for 50 years.
Yeah.
Except he had like small studies, 50 people here, 50 people there,
Right.
that sort of thing. This is 4,300 people.
Let me ask you, do you have something new around yourself? In our first meeting, you share with me some incredible, super crazy experience with, your experience with your wife, with your friends, even your daughter. Anything new around you?
Not experiences, no. It's but what is brand new, okay, is hold on one second, and I'll get it for you. Oh goodness, it's our book.
Yes.
I wish to have. I think I have it here. Here it is. Here it is. Okay. This is our book cover. So like that, people can. Let me take it out of the sleeve, the cover here.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is our book cover. Okay.
Yeah.
It is going to have 4 volumes. Okay.
Wow.
There's 5 editors. Myself, Dr. Rudy Shields, who is an emeritus professor of astrophysics from Harvard University. We have Dr. John Klimo, who is also an emeritus professor. That emeritus means retired, with distinguished from in psychology. And he's written many, many books of the paranormal and consciousness. And then we have Dr. Michael Grosso, who's the first guest that I'm going to interview tomorrow. Michael Grosso was a professor for 45 years in philosophy. He's also a major experiencer. One of his early experiences occurred the same day that he graduated from Columbia University, where he got his Ph.D.
Yeah.
He was listening to a jazz composition titled "The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost." Okay, 3, right? And guess what was dancing on top of the local Catholic church a block away? 3 gigantic orbs the size of a Volkswagen.
Wow.
The color of the sun. And they were dancing to the rhythm of the song that he was playing. Okay.
This is amazing.
He's going to be interviewed tomorrow, so we're going to go over that. Okay. And then the other person that's there is Dr. Jeffrey Long. Dr. Jeffrey Long has written 2 books on near-death experiences. He's been collecting statistical data on near-death experiences for over 25 years. He has a survey in his website. So he has 13,000 people that have had near-death experiences, that have taken his survey. And this is his 2 books, which is Evidence of the Afterlife. And then another book that he published was this one.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's Dr. Bruce Grayson. Sorry about that. Here it is. It's titled God and the Afterlife.
Yeah.
Because a good majority of the people that have a near-death experience, they meet a being that they identify as God. And it's typically an energy being. And this being, roughly 1 out of every 4 people has what is called a life review. That means they're shown the good things in their life and the bad things in their life. Okay? Not to judge them, no, because we are the one that judge ourselves. Okay? Not this being. And we relive that experience in our body and the body of the other person. Okay. So are the editors for our book, which is just mind blowing, because these are, the top of the line people that have been studying the contact modalities and the topic of consciousness.
Yeah.
And then also the table of contents. We're going to be having 4 books, as I said before. Volumes 1 and 2 are our theoretical sections.
Yeah.
Okay. The theoretical sections are the chapters that are written by professors, medical doctors, professors in medical school. Okay. We've got 4 professors that are professors in medical school. Okay. And researchers. For example, this just to give you an idea, we have 45 articles in the theoretical section. That section is basically its theory. And the sections that we have here is Dr. Jeffrey Kripal over here.
Yeah.
He is the Dean of Humanities at Rice University. And Rice University is like a little Harvard, okay? It's a university very, very famous in Texas. It's in the southern part of the United States, is by far the most academic reputation of any university in the South of the United States. So he was a professor of religion for almost 20 years. And he still teaches his classes in religion and philosophy. So he wrote the prologue for our book. Why? Because he himself is an experiencer.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have the next one is an example of a medical doctor. She just retired, so she's able to go public with her experiences. She wrote for us a 25-page chapter of her experiences, and she's had 2 near-death experiences. Her second one was only about 8 years ago, which was unbelievable. It's profound. Out-of-body experiences. Okay, she's seen Sasquatch, Bigfoot, 3 times, twice very up close. Okay, she's seen 12 UFOs. Okay, after her second near-death experiences, she began to see dead people in her hospital. Okay, that will go right through walls. Okay, and not only seen by herself, but some of the nurses as well. So
excuse me, interrupting you. Did she have some explanation about the Bigfoot, for example, or knowledge about Bigfoot?
She is someone who always trying to understand why she's having all of these experiences. But as we documented in our book, Beyond UFOs, the vast majority of people that have seen UFOs are having not just one type of paranormal experience. They're having many different types of paranormal experiences. For example, another person is one of my best friends. I think you met him once. Alberto I'll just give his first name.
Yeah.
You talked to him. Alberto is a retired DEA federal agent. Okay?
Yeah.
He was the first person to identify Manuel Noriega, the dictator of Panama, as bringing in drugs from Colombia to the Dominican Republic, to Haiti, and then to Miami. And they eventually, destroyed him. They captured him. But Alberto was the main person behind all of that. Okay.
Yeah.
He was the director of all of the Caribbean. Okay. Very responsible positions, but yet he's one of the major experiencers ever that I've ever met. His wife is a Ph.D. psychologist, and his daughter is also a Ph.D. psychologist. And his wife has told me tons of stories that she's witnessed experiences in their house and where they would go. She's also seen many, many UFOs. So that's what we're trying to understand, is people like Alberto, people like Dr. Melinda Greer, trying to come up with a theory behind all of this, of why it's happening. And so our chapter continues with this topic heading called the primacy of consciousness. And that is that consciousness is fundamental. It's not our reality. Okay, we're seeing our reality and we think it's physical and that's our only reality. But no, The way to think about it is, if you think of, let's say, heaven, right? When we die, we go to heaven, right? So that means that there's another reality which is greater than what we're here. Okay.
Right.
That's the way to visualize it. So these are all academic articles on the concept of the primacy of consciousness. The first one was written by Dr. Eben Alexander. He used to be a professor of brain surgery at Harvard University, at the Harvard Medical School, for more than 15 years. Okay. He then had a near-death experience, which totally changed him. Okay. And so we have an article from him. We have an article by 4 individuals. 2 of them are professors in medical school. That's Bruce Grayson and Jim Tucker. The third one is a retired professor of physics, Jim Sturek, at Stanford University. Stanford is, if people don't know about Stanford, think of Harvard, and then multiply it 10 times, that's Stanford. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and Larry Dawsey is a medical doctor. And then we have Tom Campbell, who wrote this very important book called My Big Toe, My Theory of Everything. And he's a physicist, okay? And numerous other chapters. Then we go into various topics that are theoretical in nature. And then we go into the topics, separate topics now. For example, for UFOs, we have a whole section just on UFOs. We have 11 articles. 11 articles. And all the articles are not nuts and bolts articles. They're all articles that are viewing and discussing UFOs in terms of consciousness. Okay. Now they're all slightly different. It's not the same, concepts, but it's all this topic of UFOs is associated with consciousness. Okay. And one was written by a very good friend of mine that I asked him to write that particular article because it hadn't been written. I said, this is Dr. Joseph Burks, who has been doing my preferred term is HICE, Human Initiated Contact Experiences, more commonly known as CE5, where you call down the UFOs. And he was doing that since 1992, for a very long time. And so we started talking about 5 years ago of like, what do we think is going on behind this? Okay. So I told him what I think is behind all of this is the mind of God. Okay. The universal consciousness behind all of our reality, and that we are living inside a virtual spiritual reality. It's a virtual reality, but it's also spiritual because there's the mind of God behind it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so he agreed, to it all. And we discussed the details, and we even discussed that UFOs are holographic projections.
May I ask you, excuse me for interruption,
Yeah.
may I ask you, do you have conclusions of some of these phenomena?
Yes, my introductory article is a thesis, my argument of what is behind all of this phenomenon and how it works.
And we can find this
in
that future.
Yes. It's right now I'm writing it, and I have about 160 pages.
Can you discover a little bit, just a little bit?
Yes. I can actually show you a drawing of it. I did like some models for people to, we don't like to discuss Russia, but you know what a Russian doll looks like?
A Russian what?
A doll.
Russian doll? Yeah.
Doll, Matryoshka, yes.
Yeah, I know.
That, you could think of our reality now, our physical reality, is the little tiny one, the smallest one, okay? And that's our physical reality, okay? And the further you get out, the outside of the Matryoshka doll is a greater reality.
Yeah.
The mind of God. Okay. So let me give you an explanation. Let me take it out and try to explain this here. Okay. As you could see here, I divided here into 2 different realms, okay, of reality, just to begin with. Okay. This bottom realm here is our 3-dimensional reality. Okay. This is basically length and width and height, what we see physically. Okay. With our eyes, okay? And for conventional neuroscience, medicine, et cetera, they see consciousness as beginning and ending with the brain, okay? Once the brain dies, you die, okay? But anyone that's had out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences, they know that that's bullshit, okay? Because they know that you're out of your body, you see your body underneath. What does that spirit, that soul, whatever you might want to call it, I call it the human consciousness, what does that have to do with your brain? Because your brain is downstairs, okay? And then if you have a near-death experience and you're going all the way up, okay, what does it have to do with your body that's dead? You know, you've been ruled dead. The doctor came in to the hospital, said he's dead, you know, and all of a sudden they wake you up, 15 minutes later, or you wake up 15 minutes later. And so what this is a model of the five senses, okay? So that's the way the nuts and bolts approach to consciousness, okay? It's called cognitive neuroscience. And then ESP is right here in the middle. ESP is extrasensory perception. Dr. Edgar Mitchell always said that ESP is our sixth sense, okay? Because it was not accepted by modern science. But yet, look at all the precognition, people that know things that are going to happen in the future. You know that someone's going to call you. It's going to be your brother. And like 2 minutes later, boom, it's your brother calling you,
Right.
And hundreds of these type of examples. And Dr. Dean Radin at the Institute for Noetic Sciences, which is the institute that Edgar Mitchell founded, he's published like 4 major books, which is all statistical research studies on ESP, which he was able to prove that it's very real. And so anyway, now this next realm here, okay, I call it the 4D physical reality. The 4D physical reality is, to give you an example, is like when you have an out-of-body experience, okay, you might be sleeping, okay, all of a sudden you pop out of your body, you see your body underneath you, okay, in bed, sleeping, but you're a consciousness, you're thinking, just like right now we're talking, okay? So you're like, what the hell just happened? Did I die? I think that's me under there, but me is here, as a spirit, and then immediately people get scared. That's the first thing that happens. Boom, they go right back to their body. Okay. Then maybe a couple of months later, it happens again. And now you're not that scared. People have read about it and they know that you're not going to die. So they say, okay, let me check out the living room. Let me check out my daughter's room, see if my daughter's okay, and let me check the neighborhood. Okay. So that is called out-of-body experiences, when your human consciousness goes into this reality. But this reality, this 4D reality, is still very physical. You're still interacting with planet Earth or with physical things, Same thing with remote viewing. Remote viewing works very, very similar to, except you're getting your human consciousness and you're projecting it to another location. And then you're seeing everything. And that was used by US military intelligence back in the early 1970s for over 10 years. Actually, they were funded for more than 20 years by the CIA.
Yeah.
And they used it for spying. Okay. And for example, Uri Geller, Israel was using Uri Geller to spy for them. Okay. And then later on, Uri Geller became a multi-millionaire because he was hired out by petrol companies to find where was the petroleum under the ground.
Right.
So he would view it and he would look underneath, and he'd go, okay, right here, this map, and he would point to the area on the map and they would dig and boom, there was oil. And they kept on hiring him and paying him. So that was just a little side story of Uri Geller. So that's called remote viewing. And overall, all of this phenomenon where you're seeing other locations, physical locations.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you're talking about all these realities, and now at the same time in my mind comes the question, are they only in the planet Earth or even outside, even the...
Yes. This is just the beginning.
Okay.
This is just the beginning. Now let's get a little bit more complicated. Okay. And also what I hypothesize is that possibly UFO intelligence might be in this realm because they're very physical and they're very consciousness based. Okay. But we really don't know. Okay. Now let's get into what your question is. Okay. this is a model that's a little bit more complicated. As you can see, right here is the 3D reality, okay? Where we're interacting with our physicality. This next level here is the 4D reality that I talked about, out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, clairvoyance is where you're using your mind to go to another location, okay?
Yeah.
And then there's different astral realms, okay? We really don't know how many different astral realms, okay?
Yeah.
The research behind the astral realms are the people that do astral traveling, okay? Now, astral traveling are usually the people that start off with out-of-body experiences. They're dealing with their bedroom, their living room, okay? Outside of their house, they're floating. Like I have a friend also named Alberto. He's about 70 years old right now. And he told me what he does. And he says, when he at night, you know, like once a month or twice a month, he pops out of his body and he likes to travel around the neighborhood. He says, I got to watch out for the telephone cables, the telephone lines, because I got to go above it, you know? But I said, no, you're a spirit, you're soul, you're not physical. You're not going to hit those cables, you know? And he was very scared. He never wanted to go far away. He wanted to stay close. So I explained to him how it works. And I said, next time it happens to you, come visit me to my house, right? So like a month later, he calls me, Ray, guess where I was last night? I said, no, I came by your house, you know? And now the man is going to Cuba, okay? When he pops out of his body, he knows where to go. And he goes through the, on top of the ocean, like super fast, shoo, and from Miami to Cuba. And he's going to the town, the rural town that he grew up in. And so he's there like at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and he sees all the country people with their animals. They're going out to work in the fields and things of that sort. And he said he loves it because it reminds him of growing up. But it's very real. It's very physical. You know, like he knows who these people are. Like this old man that he sees, he knows that old man. Mm-hmm. And he's seeing that old man. You know, he just can't go down and say, hey, you know, touch him or anything. No, you know. So these experiences are very real. There, you could see them, you could hear them, and some people even describe smelling them. Like if you have burning of a wood and things like that, people can smell those things. Okay, yeah. But it's usually your eyesight and this, but yet you're a soul. You're a human consciousness. So now here. I have this model. We really don't know how many this is, but what we do know is that within this reality, there are literally almost an infinite number of intelligences, okay? When people have astral travel experiences, it's usually people that have an out-of-body experience, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're not in the physical reality anymore, okay? They're not in this 4D reality. They're in another dimension, similar to like a near-death experience, okay? And all of a sudden, this very famous man in ufology, his name is Preston Dennett. He's written like 25 books, mainly about UFOs, but some about the paranormal. He was explaining to me, it's a lengthy story, but his experiences started by seeing his dead mother, okay? Physically, she was right there in front of him. She had died 2 weeks before. Later on, he saw on TV this show on a news report about this Japanese airliner in Alaska that these two pilots of a 747 cargo jet saw this gigantic UFO. And it was the main news at 6 o'clock, you know, evening news. And he went to his brother, oh my God, I just saw this and this, that. And his brother said, oh, I saw a UFO, a couple of months ago with my friends. And told them all the story. And then he talked to all of his friends and they verified what they saw. And then he joined the MUFON and he began to investigate cases. Okay. So then he began to see UFOs. Okay. Lots of UFOs. And then what happened later on, eventually he had out-of-body experiences. And then for the astral travel, he wanted an astral travel, not just an out-of-body experience. Then all of a sudden, one day, boom, he popped out of the reality. And he was traveling to these other dimensions. And I'm going to be interviewing him. But one time he thought about his mother who was dead. and he yells out, "Mama!" And then boom, right in front of him appears his mother, very young, 30 years old, very healthy. And they began to play. They went to like a river who's not a real river, and they were splashing water on each other, but the water wouldn't stay because it wasn't real water, It was like another reality water.
So
And
let me ask you. Let me ask you something. It's very interesting. Maybe many people are asking the same question. So when somebody die, like a physical body is dying, but the conscious is still alive, and you say he saw his mom.
No, he had an astral travel experience.
Yeah.
Do not confuse it with a near-death experience. That's something totally different. And if you want, I could explain near-death experiences.
The question is about this. So when people die, the conscious is still alive somewhere, and there's a testimony of people who say, I saw dead people like with the same body during they die, or they have different kind of body, like younger or.
Let me explain the near-death a little bit, and then I'll give you my hypothesis of how it works. Okay, here on this path, here, on this side here, we have the paths of human consciousness. Okay, human consciousness can go up, like I said, having an out-of-body experience, a remote viewing, also astral travel, like so many people that have had these experiences. Okay, now when you die, okay, or you're very, very close to death, okay, people continue traveling up to here. Okay, now this section here is the mind of God. Okay, now in that scenario, the near-death experiences, people get to see their deceased relatives, who appear to them usually very young, like 30 years old.
How are they recognizing it?
It's like an instant knowingness.
Or maybe like feelings.
No, it's a knowingness, an instant knowingness, because all communication is telepathic. Okay, that's why all the contact modalities that I talked about, when you're in this realm here, there's no mouth-to-mouth communication. It's mind to mind. He was talking to his mother with his mind, back and forth. Okay, near-death experiences, it's mind to mind. Okay, when you're out of body and you might see a being interacting with you, okay, it's mind to mind. Okay, so your human consciousness travels all the way up to this realm here. And then besides seeing deceased relatives, you also, 1 out of every 4 people has what is called a life review. They are shown the good things they have done in their life and the bad things. And they're shown it like different ways, but for many people, it's like you are inside your body. Let's say when you're 12 years old and you had a fight with another boy and you punching him and punching him and punching him, you experience that in your body, punching that boy again, but also in the body of the little boy getting punched. Okay, so you're feeling that, you're seeing it, you're sensing it both ways. Okay, and then this being that people identify as God, and most of the time people describe it as an energy being. Okay, sometimes people view it as a human looking being. Okay, people have seen Jesus, they've seen Buddhas, they've seen rabbis, they've seen Asian men, that they associated depending on their culture, because it's not a physical human, it's just coming out that way so you can interact with it. Okay,
energetic.
Yes, it's I don't know if it's it's what it's based upon. It really it's information, like the zeros and ones that I have back here. Okay, and what happens is that our medical doctor, she describes that when she died, okay, who she was, Dr. Melinda Greer, merged with the mind of God, became one with God. And then she joined the group of other people who had recently died. And she said it was like a school of fish. Like, when a shark comes to attack a school of fish, they divide like this. Now, how do they know exactly where to go? and it's instantaneously. That's how she said communication was with the other souls in her group. It was instantaneous. It's like if one had a thought, the other one instantaneously knew it. And all the people that have near-death experiences, almost all of it, discuss the love. That's the number one thing, the love. It was like unbelievable. It said, how much you love your mother, multiply that like 1 billion. Okay, that's the main concept. And also, everybody is basically told, almost everybody, that it's not your time. You need to go back.
Yeah.
You need to go back. And then nobody wants to go back. They want to stay because they realize that that is their home. Okay. And then when people are told to go back, what they are told is that, look, it's not important what religion you are. It's not important how much money you are. Okay. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's important is you as a human being need to learn how to love. That's the most important mission for mankind. But yet, when I interviewed Raymond Moody, who is the person that coined the term near-death experience, in 1975, he wrote a book titled Life After Life, which used that word near-death experience for the first time. I went to Alabama to interview him for our documentary. And what he said, Ray, the concept of love is the most important concept that we're told that we need to learn here in this planet. But yet a day doesn't go by where I don't feel like strangling somebody. Okay. And what he meant by that is that the concept seems very simplistic. It seems very simple. You need to love your neighbor, but yet it's the most difficult concept for mankind to learn. Okay. Because, and then also on the other side here, as you see here, this side here is the flows of consciousness. But this time it's not human consciousness. No, it's consciousness of various intelligences. For example, when people see a ghost or a spirit, okay, the ghost and the spirit already is either here or maybe here in a transition stage, like it's stuck. It cannot go up.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Right now we're talking about the consciousness who is leaving the physical body and moving to another dimensions or areas. What about who create this consciousness to take the bodies?
God. Now, again, this is not a religious God, okay? And we don't have any answers for that. The best response to that are the people, the thousands, tens of thousands of people that have documented their near-death experiences.
Yeah.
Because these are people, like, for example, there's a medical doctor who's a spine surgeon, okay? Nancy Raines, I think is her last name. She had a book, very popular book, and she was drowned. She was in the river for over half an hour. It was a very, very cold river. And the doctors suspect that she didn't have brain damage because the water was so cold. So it preserved, the brain, the body for when she returned back. So she was floating out of her body, seeing her body underneath. She then went through a tunnel, saw a deceased relative. She saw this being that she identified as God, okay? And to her, because she was very religious, the being appeared as Jesus Christ, okay? The people that are Jewish, it'll appear as a rabbi, okay? The people that believe in Islam, okay? They might see the Prophet Muhammad, okay? So it appears to you in a way that's comfortable for you to appear. But for the vast majority of the cases, it'll appear as an energy being, like this big, gigantic ball of energy, okay? And the communication is mind to mind, telepathic, okay?
Another question. I'm sorry to interrupt you again.
Yeah.
So this consciousness who is coming from God, I mean, if God created the consciousness and they coming and taking bodies, are they coming like a empty piece of paper without any information, without anything? And when they came here, they start learning and growing eventually?
Well, again, this is the controversial stuff, okay? Because there's this whole literature of in between lives. And that information is basically based upon hypnotic regressions, okay? Which most of the people in our organization do not take too kindly to hypnotic regressions, okay? But there's lots of people that have written many books about between lives, what happens when you're up there, okay? But most of that information is based upon hypnotic regressions. Now, there are many near-death experiencers that get their information from being up there. Like, for example, the medical doctor. But she described it, and she's not the only one. There are hundreds of people that describe something similar, is that when she died, who she was as Dr. Melinda Greer was uploaded like a computer. You see, zeros and ones information, all the information of her life, all her emotions, all of her feelings went up to the mind of God, okay, and merged with it. It's like God captured it, okay, and then what remained was just the soul, okay, but the soul is not Melinda Greer anymore. It's a little piece of God, okay. It's still part of God, but it's like a little tiny separate being of God. And then people come back, they reincarnate, okay. Both this book, Beyond UFOs, okay, and the near-death experiences, okay, and the near-death experiences, folks, okay, they have received information about reincarnation, okay, that yes, is very real. And if you talk to most of the ancient cultures, okay, from the early Indian culture, the Vedic tradition, Hinduism, the Buddhist tradition, okay, to the Middle Eastern traditions, okay, to Greek, Roman traditions, the early Christians, the early Christian before the year 300, et cetera, they all believed in reincarnation, okay? But what happened was that when the modern Bible was formed, people don't understand, the Bible was formed 300 years after Christ's death, okay? Before, you had all these little separate cities where you had the priests and the different religious people. They had their own separate view of Christianity. They had their own Bible. Certain books were very prominent, okay? Certain books they never used. So what happened was in the year, I think it was 320, I think it was the exact date. So don't quote me on it. But the Roman emperor, he became Christian. And he says, I want to develop one Bible. And so he brought the representatives from many, many different cities together. And they convened to throw away books and to introduce what the Roman emperor wanted, what he liked. So that's like the modern Bible. But before that date, there were a lot of these different cities and religious figures, you know, the monks or the priests, you know, for those churches that they accepted reincarnation. Why? Because it's an old tradition that came from the Romans, that came from the Greek. A lot of these people were educated. You know, most of the people that attended the masses, they were not educated. It was the priests or, you know, those individuals that did read a lot of that tradition. So it came from them. And then from the Romans and the Greek, where did that come from? Well, that came from India. That came from Asia, because people were not just secluded, you know, they were all trading among each other. Yeah. So this tradition of reincarnation goes back thousands of years. I would say to the ancient Vedic tradition from ancient India, which is Sanskrit.
Yeah, I have another question. I'm thinking during your explanations. So God, or this super being thing,
I call it the universal mind of God.
Okay, the universal mind of God.
Of God, yeah.
Looks like create some amount of consciousness or souls and he's not producing new consciousness. He just create, for example, 30 trillions of consciousness, and he's giving a chance to go to the to get bodies.
Well, you're looking at it from a human perspective.
Okay.
But people are interacting here on this earth. They're seeing perceived angels, perceived different types of beings. In our research study, this research study, people have seen thousands of different beings. Ufology basically thinks it's just small grays. No, the small grays were just number 3. Number 1 was the energy being. Number 2 was the human looking being. Number 3 was the small grays. But even in those top 3 categories, there are literally hundreds of different types of beings within one. For example, for the human looking being, people have described 20-foot tall human looking beings. They described little humans. Okay. They've described Asian beings. They've described African, with the kinky hair type of beings. Okay. They've described like Palladians, which are blonde hair, blue eyes with a blue skin tight suit. Okay. Many of these beings wear monk's robes. Brown or white are the main colors. Some wore like Greek tunics. Some had long beards. Okay. So, my friend Alberto said, Ray, I saw Zeus. I said, what do you mean you saw Zeus? Well, he was like 7 feet tall, very strong, very powerful. He had this long beard and he was dressed in a Greek outfit. I said, well, how do you know it was Zeus? He says, well, I've seen the pictures of Zeus. He looked like Zeus.
Oh, okay.
So I called him Zeus.
Yeah.
And so he was the one that gave Alberto a near-death experience. But Alberto was on his living room watching TV. Okay. But he had been thinking about death. Okay. So this being said, look, Alberto, you don't have to worry about death. Let me show you what death is like. And gave him a near-death experience. Okay. So what I'm getting at is that there are literally thousands of different types of beings that people are seeing. People have seen tons of animals, just like owls. Owls are extremely common. They've seen little owls. They've seen 6-foot owls. Okay. They've seen owls with just owl feet. Some owl have feet like human beings. Okay. People have seen lions. Okay. With like human bodies, but the head looks like a lion. I mean, on and on and on, hundreds. So what's happening is that what people are experiencing here are projections, holographic projections. You know what a hologram is, that you could project something like Princess Leia in Star Wars. That was a hologram. So you can project it, and the mind of God is interacting with us, and they're projecting holograms to interact with us. And a reason that I came to that conclusion was reading the accounts of other people, but also my personal experience. There was one time, my very first UFO that I called down. This was in August of 2012. I've only tried this 5 times. That's it, 5 times to call a UFO. 4 times I was successful. And each of the 4 times, the UFO was all different. Only one time was it physical. The other time was like very complicated light configurations. Okay. So the very first time was the size of a football stadium, the biggest football stadium in Sofia. Okay. That's how big it was. But yet it was on top of my next door neighbor's house, but it was huge. And it went back, like 6 blocks. And so then my friend and his wife and their 17-year-old daughter come, and they're seeing this. They go, Ray, what is that? I said, you know damn well what it is. I said, no, it can't be. Right. And then all of a sudden in my mind, I communicated to that intelligence. And I'll curse a little bit here, but you could translate it, to Bulgarian. I said, you better come up with some better bullshit than this, because my friends don't believe you. Okay. Instantaneously, what we were watching totally disappeared. And now it was replaced now by about 100 stars, very large stars that were like inside where that object was. Okay. What I watched before was oblong streaks of light that form like a skeleton. Just think of a skeleton of an elephant or a whale. You see a skeleton, and inside was all this white plasma swirling around. Okay. As soon as I had that thought, you better come up with some better, bullshit than this, because this is nothing. Give me something good, so they could believe you. All of a sudden, that disappeared, replaced by stars, and they were all going like this, on and off, on and off, on and off. And then they would take turns powering up and then powering down, and then another one in another area, powering up and powering down, then another area, powering up, powering down. And so then my friends stopped because they knew that was not human, because they were trying to explain it away. So what had happened was, I realized by that experience was that by my thought, I told this intelligence, you throw that shit away because that's not working. Okay, give me something good. And then it was wiped out and a new hologram was projected.
Yeah.
Also, I felt at the end that they wanted to get rid of us. I felt that mosquitoes were attacking me, hundreds of mosquitoes. So I physically felt hundreds of mosquitoes attacking me. So I grabbed my daughter's hand. I said, let's go inside. These mosquitoes are killing me, right? Once we go inside and I'm telling my wife what happened, my daughter, who was then 10 years old, she turns around and said, Daddy, there were no mosquitoes outside. And it's like I woke up, like I was hypnotized. I don't know whether you've ever seen a show of someone that hypnotizes people. On the stage, they got people quacking like a duck, quack, 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 walking around like chickens and totally hypnotized. So to me, it's like when my daughter said, Daddy, there were no mosquitoes outside. It was like I woke up. I was in some type of a trance.
Yeah.
Were they able to control my mind? Okay. And then I said, my goodness, this is an intelligence that's able to interact with my consciousness. Okay. That's how it works. And in our chapters for our book, our chapter has theoretical chapters, 2 theoretical chapters, and 2 chapters, 2 books written by experiencers. Okay. So it's 4 books, 2 theory, 2 from experiencers. And in one of those experiences, it's that talks about this, exactly what I'm telling you about, okay, in very detailed. So there's many, many examples. So these are topics which are not discussed by nuts and bolts ufology, okay?
Yeah.
Never, okay? And this whole aspect of this, of consciousness, that all of them, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, UFOs, seeing a ghost or a dead person, that they all have to be studied as one phenomenon. The paper that I'm writing now is why it's all one phenomenon, okay? And I give many commonalities. One commonality is that all of these experiences involve a manipulation of space-time, okay? If you see a ghost, that ghost is coming from other dimension, another reality, okay? And so it's manipulated space-time, okay? When you're having a near-death experience, your human consciousness is like going all the way up, up here, okay? So that's a manipulation of space-time, okay? When you're having an out-of-body experience, manipulation of space and time, out-of-body experience, et cetera, remote viewing, okay? And so that's one commonality. Another commonality is that all communication that takes place is mind to mind, okay? And numerous other commonalities. So I go over the major commonalities of why it needs to be seen as one. And then the final explanation is take a look at the people that wrote our book, the chapters from our book. We have over 70 chapters. Okay, and you will find with each and every one of these people, they have not had 1. They've not had 2. They've had 3 or more different types of paranormal experiences.
Mr. Hernandez, you'll be one of special guests in Bulgaria for our conference. what Bulgarians can, I mean, not only Bulgarians, because we're going to have visitors from Western Europe, also, what they can expect from your presentation. What are you going to talk about?
Yeah, from my presentation, what they can get is they can get academic
Yeah,
research.
of course. Yeah.
Okay, that's number one.
Yeah.
This is not someone, you're not going to get metaphysics. Okay, everything that I talked about is all based upon academia. Okay, academics. Number two, what I'm going to be introducing is this concept of consciousness, which is not associated with ufology, because I think most of the people you have speaking there are going to be talking about UFOs. Okay, to most of those people, they're going to be saying that UFOs is something physical. Okay, the vast majority of them, and to me, that nuts and bolts approach, which is a materialist approach, which is similar to how cognitive neuroscience views our reality. They view it based upon these five senses. Okay, the people that are materialists in ufology, they view it with these senses. Okay, so what I'm going to argue is that that approach for ufology has contributed almost nothing. What do we really know about UFOs? Well, we know they're fast. Okay, we know that they're there. We know that tens of thousands of people are seeing them, maybe even on a daily basis. Okay, we know that they're there. The governments are finally acknowledging that it's there. We know that some of them appear on the radar and instantaneously, they're not on the radar anymore. Okay, so outside of that, what else do we know about UFOs? The materialist approach is not working, is not telling you anything. Okay, but yet this book that focuses on the experiencers, okay, 4,300 people. This has lots of information about what UFOs are all about, okay? What's behind UFOs. So what I'm going to be lecturing is what is behind UFO. Like in the movie, The Wizard of Oz. Some of the folks here might have seen it with Julie Garden, okay? Behind the Wizard of Oz, there was a man with controlling everything. So what I want to show you is behind ufology, together behind all of the paranormal, okay, is this concept called consciousness. So we're going to be making two arguments in the presentation, and that's our book is all about. Number one is that consciousness is primary and not our material reality. That this thing here, okay, what you think is consciousness, it's all an illusion. It's an illusion. It's Maya, okay? And that our real reality is much more complex. So that's the first thing, that consciousness is primary. Number two is that all of the contact modalities, okay? Near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, UFOs, remote viewing, people that see and communicate with dead people, okay? All of the paranormal, channeling, etc., that all of these experiences need to be seen as one phenomenon and not separate and distinct phenomena, which is what it is now. Ufology folks, they're like, what the hell does near-death have to do with UFOs? Has nothing to do with UFOs. What did have ghosts and spirits have to do with UFOs? Nothing. Well, talk to the experiencers here, okay? 80% of these people have had out-of-body experiences.
Yeah.
Two-thirds of the people have seen a dead person, okay? And another two-thirds of those people have communicated mind to mind with the dead person, okay? Orbs, 60% have seen orbs. Have had a miraculous medical healing, like my dog. That was 50%. People brought to other dimensions, okay? People brought to other dimensions, okay? 50% of 4,300 people were brought to other dimensions, okay?
Yeah.
And so what I'm arguing is that you name the paranormal experience, these people have had it, okay? But what it is these people are studying just UFOs, a physical object. They don't understand the experiences that these people have had. And also another important point that your audience members needs to understand is that for over the first 40 years of the UFO phenomenon, they didn't allow data from experiencers. That was thrown out. It was too controversial because these people were trying to get across acceptability of UFOs. And now if you're talking about someone that saw a UFO and all of a sudden he's talking to a Palladian being, and said, no, that person's crazy, they're not going to take us serious. So all the reports threw that out. Then the next phase came really in the early 1980s with all of this abduction talk, abduction discussions, okay? Our book here researched extensively the abduction phenomenon, and it shows that it has nothing to do with what people believe an abduction is, okay? We won't have enough time in the conversations here, but it's very, very complicated, and it's not what people believe it to be, okay? Yet David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins and the early Whitley Strieber, those are people that controlled the conversation, okay, of what the UFO contact was. And it was primarily an abduction phenomenon. Well, we discovered there was only 1/3, 1 out of every 3 people had an abduction. But yet those people that had an abduction, in the beginning, 37% viewed it as highly negative because they were very, very frightened of the experience. But 20 years later, 30 years later, that number was reduced from 37% to only 4%. That's it. Tremendous reduction because most of these people began to have other experiences. Okay, and the experiences now were perceived as much more positive. Like, for example, Whitley Strieber. Okay, Whitley Strieber, these are horrible beings, horrible experiences, just like David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins. Okay, now Whitley Strieber prays to these beings. He sees them as modern angels. Okay, now Whitley Strieber. Why? Because he's had a whole lifetime of experiences. The experiences became much more positive. They became much more angelic. Okay, and he also sees them as modern angels. They gave him the gift of being able to communicate with his dead wife, his deceased wife. So Kathleen Martin, who's going to be speaking at the conference, she started off focusing mainly on abductions. Her book was Captured, the Benny and Barney Hill story. Very famous case of the first ever abduction in the United States. Okay.
Kathleen will be one of the speakers.
Yes, one of the speakers. Now, she just recently published a book titled From Abductions to Spirituality. Okay.
You mean the captures?
Her new book.
Oh, his new book.
She has a new book, and it's titled From Abduction to Spirituality.
Oh, okay.
And there she talks about how, just like Whitley Strieber and almost everybody in this book, almost everybody, okay, how they changed over time. In the beginning, it was fearful, fear-based. Okay. Later on, it became very spiritual. Okay. People were taught about spirituality. People were brought to the other realities. Okay. So Kathy Martin's new book is how she became deeply spiritual from these beings. Okay. But yet, most of the people see ufology, especially the abduction phenomenon, from this perspective. Okay. Right. And that was the perspective that was established by Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs, who had an agenda. They always viewed it as negative. Anybody that had a positive experience, they wouldn't interview them.
Yeah.
And then how did they get the information? They got it via hypnotic regression.
Right.
By posing leading questions, leading one after another in there. Mm-hmm. Okay. So to me, it's garbage in, garbage out,
Yeah. Okay, we are almost to the end of this. Would you like to say some greetings for the visitors of that conference in Bulgaria?
Well, I am open to speaking with people one-on-one. Come and see me personally. We'll sit down. We'll have some coffee. We'll talk about your experiences. We'll talk about what Edgar Mitchell taught me. Dr. Rudy Shields, the professor of physics at Harvard. This big, gigantic research committee that we had that developed this book, okay? Well, how they saw things, okay? And the new organization, this new organization, the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, that has over 25 PhD academics. Okay. And so all of these people, they think the same way like I do. Okay. We might have slight difference here, they're small. Okay. But basically the same way. And so ask me any questions. I will be available to help you, to answer your questions. I'm not just going to Sofia to have a vacation. No, it's a working trip.
Yeah. Have you been in Bulgaria before?
No, never. I'm thinking of inviting my wife, but I don't know how expensive it is, how much of the flights, how much of the hotel, all of this.
Well, the hotel rooms will be for 2 persons, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much again for your time, Mr. Hernandez, and we're very excited to see you in Bulgaria. And you have to try Bulgarian food.
Oh, definitely, 100%.
You'll be in love.
100%. Just I don't want to get too fat. I'm already fat.
Okay, thank you very much again.
Everyone, I look forward to seeing you. Okay, it's I think it's a historic conference because at least from my perspective, I've never known of anyone in Europe to integrate consciousness with the paranormal, as one phenomena. And so you're going to be, I think, listening to a historic lecture. And also my book will be out by then. And the book is really mind-blowing because it's discussing our reality. What happens when you die? What happens when you see your aunt who died 2 days ago and she's right in front of you? Once you see a UFO, it's all aspects about all of this phenomena to show how it's all integrated. It's all one.
Yeah.